Happy Saturday night. Uh, Welcome to Eight Questions with. I'm your host, Patrick from Have Cheetah Will View. Uh, it is 14 degrees here in southeastern Michigan. 14 degrees. So, our guest is scheduled to be here at 8 o'clock, but I have not heard from him other than this morning. So, I do not know what's going on. I will say this. I didn't say this before, but I have to say this. Our guest, uh, while he is a working actor and a very busy working actor, he also carries a 9 to 5 job. And there is a chance that he might have got called in and might not have been able to tell me. He is actually a nurse, a registered nurse. He works as a registered nurse. So, doesn't surprise me when I found that out. I was like, okay, makes sense. Since he starred on the shift, which was a superb story uh, uh, about uh, about a nurse who reaches a breaking point. Our guest today is Leo Oliva, and he'll be here, and he is a fascinating man. Well, we talked last week. He had to reschedule the show to tonight, but there is a chance. I'm hoping. I sent him the link, and you know, I will know within a few minutes what's going to happen. If that's the case, then I will go ahead and if he's not here uh, within a certain time, then I'll go ahead and I'll end the stream, and then we'll come back and come out and do something different. And but we'll see. He might be on his way home from traffic or whatnot. So um, those who are here that are watching Michelle and Makeup Mom and Son and Katie are doing their interview. If you came over from that live stream, thank you for coming over. Um, so I guess I will talk to you a little bit about the calendar. Yeah, all right. Wow, everybody's showing up early. Uh, oh my gosh, what can we say, Bones, man? We've been tossing that damn movie around since I don't know. I think it was Ben. I don't know who came up with it first. It might have been Ben from Cadaver Club that came up with that movie first. I don't know. Um, all I know, it might have been Hobbs. I'm not sure who did it, but we sure do get a lot of mileage out of that damn thing. Uh, I'm actually sort of surprised, still sort of surprised that you don't want to see it. Um, okay. I don't know. I think I left entertainment on that stream. I was trying to make Michelle laugh. That's honestly, I was trying to make her laugh. That was my whole point, was to make her laugh. Kept on talking about Mothra, the Pede, uh, you know, Hobbs. Oh, all right. Well, gosh, he made it. I was worried. He's not. He's gonna have to try to come back. Okay. Yeah, I had actually thought that maybe he got pulled in for a shift, and there's nothing I could do about that. Um, I'm not gonna say shit about that. Yep, I see him. Yeah, our guest is here. He is trying to come in. He's in the basement. He was in the basement. I was really concerned because he works in Los Angeles, and that's a very, very, very busy city, and I'm sure people who work in the profession are being pulled in at all sorts of hours of the night. You got to respect that. You can't say anything about it, not a word. I don't want to hear it. If he had to work, I'm keeping my mouth shut about that, and thanking him for it. But he is here, and he is trying. I might have to resend him the link. I'm gonna try to do that. Let me see. Uh, I'll resend the link. Okay. I'm not sure how long that works. If you send somebody a link, I'm not sure how long it takes before it actually. All right, let me do this. Okay, that's me. All right. All right. All right. We're gonna see if we can get him in here. If not, we'll try to get him in through using Google Chrome. If he's hearing this, go ahead and retry the link, Leo. And if for some reason you have trouble coming in, we'll have you come in through Google Chrome. That should get you in. No problemo. Hey Jaden, how are you, sir? Oh, thanks so much for the raid. That's awesome. So our guest will be here momentarily. Um, there he is. That's what I needed. Uh, Greetings, sir.
How you doing?
Good, good. I have a feeling I know what happened. I sent that link at 4:30. It must have a window of time to use it, or it closes. So because when you came in before, it said your mic or your camera both weren't working.
Yeah,
But
so there's a weird setup issue with Safari. Safari won't allow you to jump on board on a Mac computer, so I had to open it in Chrome. They don't like each other, so it's okay.
I guess not.
Yeah.
I was just telling the folks too. I'm more like, I wasn't sure because I talked to you earlier this morning, but I didn't hear anything back, and I thought, I know there's a very, very strong chance you might have got pulled into work, and I was actually factored that into my game plan uh, because you are in LA, you are a registered nurse. I'm sure the demands on your time are very formidable.
Yeah.
I'm sure your middle name's probably overtime.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your
Overtime overkill.
nickname. Hey, get overtime over here. Put a central line in.
Yeah.
Okay, that's my only medical thing. I got that from Scrubs. Okay.
It works. It works.
Okay.
Yeah. They don't let me do it. They don't let me do it. They probably would if I asked, but they don't really let me do it.
Um,
I had a shift today. I worked just an 8-hour shift, a quick shift. I have a 12 tomorrow. So I was jumping. I'm jumping on after getting home. I took a quick shower to get the COVID off, and I got a little bit of tea, a little toast. So if you don't mind me eating while we talk,
no, no,
okay,
not at
cool.
all. Not
Yeah,
at all.
yeah.
I haven't. Yep, I get it. So, how was your day?
Uh, good, good. I'd say uneventful. I like to look at my status in life as if I'm not in a bed and I'm doing okay, I'm doing okay, and that's my approach. 90% of the time. So I got to leave the hospital. I got to come home, and I'm getting to talk with you guys.
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy because it's like, when you and I first talked, and then, it shouldn't have surprised me as much as it did, when you said that, hey, this is what I do for a living. I'm, it's part when I'm not working on a set, and it's just like it clicked, and I'm like, of course he is, because your knowledge, because you wrote The Shift, which
Yeah.
is the next movie we'll talk about. Um, everything was perfect. It was like, and I'm only saying that because of my own experience. Watching how they speak and how they interact with each other and everything else. I mean, when you're sitting there during a infusion of 4 hours, you observe a lot
Right.
of things.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I mean,
Yeah. I
uh,
mean, it's when you're first learning how to write, you're told to write what you know, and that was I wanted to do a few things when I wrote The Shift. One of them was to let nurses know that they're not alone, because we spend a lot of time taking care of other people, and there aren't many people that can take care of us. You can't really come home and talk to your wife about the 4-year-old that died, and you can't talk to your best friend. No one wants to hear the sad stories. They want to hear what's the craziest thing that happened in the ER. Everyone wants to hear that, and no one wants to decompress the truth of the situation. So it was an approach and an attempt to let nurses know that they're not alone. When I first wrote it, I didn't want it to be fake, and I didn't want anybody at my job to be like, that was bullshit. I didn't believe any of that. I wanted it to be as realistic as possible, to the extent that I took actors that I knew and said, you're coming with me into a bit of an incubator, and I'm going to show you the level of intensity that we actually work at. I don't want it to be ER or not to diss on ER, because ER helped me write The Shift, but shows that you see that the doctor's running the CAT scan machine and is yelling for this and yelling, and when it's a very controlled chaos that
yeah.
we live in.
I got to see the emergency room in Ann Arbor far too often.
Yeah.
Especially the last year. Never once on a weekend did I ever see anything close approaching to what I saw in ER.
Yeah.
And I saw a full ER. I mean, the ER was full, so there was busy. It was really busy. You had students that were drunk, that had overdosed, overdrank. You had the old pensioners. You had somebody come a couple of times, have somebody come in with a broken bones.
Mm-hmm.
I never came across as, I mean, ER was so, jumping on the guy's chest and cracking it open and all that. And my mom never told me any stories like that. She never said anything that was quite like that. And, I'm not sure exactly how much of that was true. First, then I watched them all work at the full ER, plus people in the waiting room, and never once did it ever approach that kind of hellish, hectic thing they put, Hollywood does.
Yeah.
And I tend to think that the real is what we saw in Ann Arbor, and not what we saw in Chicago in ER. I know inner cities they see a lot more gunshots. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
they do trauma training there.
Yeah.
Our National Guard will come in and learn how to do battlefield training inside of inner cities, because they saw all the gunshots they see.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm not really seeing people running down the hall yelling and screaming, and I just see, like, they come in, they do what they need to do, and then they get out to the next patient.
Yeah. And I think that's also a testament to how we work, right? At the end of the day, I could be cracking a chest in the room next door, but you don't need to know that. You shouldn't need to know that.
Right.
I should be able to come into your room. If your 5-year-old fell and twisted his arm or hurt his ankle, he might be next to a kid who is from a drive-by and a gunshot wound, and we're cracking his chest. Another 5-year-old. He should not know what's happening in that room next door. It should be two totally different worlds, because we need to treat you that way. You might, if you walk out and you see what's happening, but You shouldn't. It's our job to compartmentalize, and it's a true testament to what we do, and also to some of the trauma that we experience at times that we have to swallow, because I have to swallow it between rooms to go to the next one so that I can do what I need to do the best way that I can. So, yeah,
Well, I mean, LA being a bigger city than Chicago, you
yeah,
know, so if people ask you, well, is what happens in ER, does that really happen like that? And you can actually sit there and say, no, not exactly,
no,
there's not a lot of frantic running around and grabbing things and things like that. There's not. It's just like you said. There's a beautiful, excellent documentary show on TCL called Life in the ER and Life in the ER, and I love that show. And I used to sit there and watch it a lot. And some of the injuries that they had to deal with, and the only thing I was struck was how cool and calm it was,
yeah,
and but incredibly stressful. And then when I was watching The Shift, I'm watching The Shift, which came out in 2013, which is that's, I don't know if I mentioned that to you or not, but that's the year I lost my wife.
I know, I didn't know that. I'm sorry to hear that.
Um, so when I saw the movie and I'm watching it, I just it was such a riveting role, such a great movie. I admit it. I mean, I shook my head. I got tears in my eyes in it. It's a powerful movie. Um, Beautifully acted, well, strongly written, and greatly directed.
Yeah.
And you got to work with some talent there. But I want to come back to that.
Okay. Yeah. Sure.
Now that we went into our chat over here, now we're going to come back to it. I want to talk. Let's go back to your beginning, because
Okay.
you are Cuban, right? Cuban American.
Cuban American, born and raised in Miami. I my grandma saw me talking my mouth full. I'd get backhanded.
It's my fault, Grandma. Please forgive me.
I was born and raised in Miami. Cuban parents. First generation in the U.S. My dad came over when he was 5. My mom came over when she was 11 or 12. Both different routes. But we were raised in Miami. Me and my brothers. I was the youngest of 3. Then my mom, I had a little brother, so now I am not the youngest, but I'm number 3 out of 4. I grew up always wanting to be kind of the center of attention, always enjoying putting on a little show and helping people disconnect by being this comedic relief and kind of a class clown. Although I was very good in school, I was honor rolls back to back. I enjoyed school. I wanted to be an astronaut. I wanted to do aerospace engineer, and I wanted to go to the moon. And then I saw Apollo 13, and I noticed that I had seen Tom Hanks in another movie, and I was like, wait, but he's an astronaut in this, and if he's an astronaut in this, but he was something else and something else, look, then I can be whatever I want if I'm an actor. So then it became this idea of, well, what is it to be an actor? How does that work? Because if I grew up in Miami, film and TV is not a business. It's acting is a hobby. It's a dream, and I want to be an actor turns into great. You need to get a job, and my dad led me into nursing. My dad, he's retired now, but he was a registered nurse, and once a nurse, always a nurse. He told me, go to school, get your nursing degree, and you'll get to work 3 days a week or 3 nights a week, and you'll have 7 days to do whatever you want. And that's what I did. I went into nursing school with the idea that I would be able to do acting and that nursing would be my means to an end. And I'm here. I graduated in 2006 with my nursing degree. I'm here 15 years later, still doing nursing because there's a part of it that still pulls me back. There's an aspect of helping people that still calls to me, which I attempt to do with the work that I do from an acting perspective as well. But I did nursing. I studied nursing at the University of Miami while also taking classes in theater and doing some productions while I was there. And about a year after graduating, nursing school after a horrible breakup, I heard a wonderful announcement that I think everybody's heard on the radio. You want to be an actor? You want to do this? You want to do that? Come to this. So I went to one of those like talent search things, saying, let's see what this is really all about. And I took a monologue that I had done while I was at the University of Miami with a great acting teacher, this lady, Patricia Dolan. And I did my monologue and they were like, you're actually really good. And I was like, cool. And they're like, well, you're going to move on to the next round, the next round, and the next round. And about 3 rounds in, they were like, okay, so it's going to cost you $750 to see.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this game. Yeah, I thought we'd get here.
Wow.
And
that sucks.
I did the math and I was like, forget about it. $750. We'll see where this leads. So I put the $750. I drove from Miami to Orlando, did the whole $750 thing. And I started, again, progressing through the different levels and ended up in front of a bunch of casting directors, in front of a bunch of managers. And I got a lot of interest from them. And I spoke to one manager in particular, and he was really interested. And mind you, when I was doing this, I was 22, but I looked like I was 16. And when he found out I was 22 and I lived in Miami and I didn't have my SAG card and I had no credits, he goes, yeah, I can't do anything with you. He goes, if you have no credits, it doesn't matter whether you speak Spanish or you're a good actor or you look handsome. It doesn't matter. I can't do anything with you. I can't do anything with you in Miami. So I said, what would you suggest I do? He goes, if you're serious, get to LA and get to work. And I said, okay. The next day I called my job, told him I was going to quit. I gave him a 2 weeks notice. I called a traveling nurse company, told them I wanted to be in LA in 2 weeks. They said, we'll work on that for you. And in 3 weeks, I was in LA, drove cross country with my dad, packed all my things into a little 1998 Corolla and drove across the country. Nice 7 days, got my license in person in Sacramento, came down to LA, and I've been here since.
How was it? What was that conversation like with your dad as you traveled across country?
Simple. I was driving down. I had already talked to my job and told them that I was going to be given the 2 week notice. I had already talked to the travel nursing company, so I had everything lined up. And I called my dad, very similar to when I love motorcycles, and I had bought a motorcycle. I'll tell you that story after. But I called my dad and I said, so I'm moving to LA. I'd love it if you drove with me. If you want to go with me, cool. If not, it's okay. I'll be leaving in about 2 weeks is what I'm estimating. He's like, what? I said, yeah, I'm moving to LA. I'm going to do this. It's the only way that I can really see if this is what I'm really going to get to do with my life or not. And he said, okay, I'll go with you. My dad's very supportive in that aspect of like, if that's really what you want to do, go for it. I'll do whatever I can to help you figure it out and to be of support. I've been lucky enough to have that from my parents, from both my parents, my dad and my mom. They've been extremely supportive and everything. Then again, I'm not a jerk. So it's
well, plus too, I mean, you showed your parents that, you know, you were focused and dedicated to doing, you know, you set goals and you achieved them over and over and over, you know, including going and getting your nursing degree. I mean, that's no slouch. I mean, you know, there's a difference between becoming a what do they call it, a CNA or like a nurse assistant, NA, or and a registered nurse. Registered nurses, you're not that far below from an intern. You know, I mean, your skill level is pretty damn good. There
was a saying in the hospital that I started working at. It was a teaching hospital, and they would the attending who was teaching all the residents that were coming in, they'd be like, these nurses will know more than you do until you're 3 years into your residency. So trust what they're doing. They have more knowledge when they come out of school than you do, just because of the hours that we've spent with patients and what we're doing. And it was true, but that also creates a very awesome dynamic between the nurses and the doctors to where they're relying on us as much as we're relying on them. And that does nothing but serve the patient like 110%, 110%.
So I could definitely see your father going, I'm saddling up with you. I'm going. I mean, I'm sure there was no second guessing on his part. He was just like, hell yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. Plus he got the added bonus. We stopped in South Carolina to see one of my brothers, and then we drove up through Chicago and went all the way through the north and ended up in Colorado, visited my other brother, and he loves road tripping. My dad he used to be a truck driver. Before he became a nurse, he was a truck driver. So you put him on the road and he's happy. We drove once from Miami to Montana when I was in 5th grade, I think. That was, yeah, we like road tripping.
You took the long way across country. I thought you would have went from down south through Arkansas, Texas, New Mexico, come up that way. But
But we've done it. We had done that trip before, so it was a matter of like, well, how can we also make something out of this? I had a road bike strapped onto the back of the car, little stick shift Corolla, packed. I mean, I could pack everything that I had in just the back of that car, and we just drove, and it was like, okay, cool. We're going to see Lewis up in South Carolina, and we're going to drive across, and we're going to hit the top, and end up in Colorado and see Laz, and just make something out of it instead of just a straight shot, So.
So did your dad talk to you? Did he give you any lasting advice on that last road trip? I mean, anything that stuck with you when you were, because you must have been tremendously excited. The closer you got to California, the more you're like, holy, I'm really going to do this. Did you ever have any second thoughts, Leo, about?
No, I didn't have second thoughts in the process of driving across. Throughout the journey of creating a career, there have been second thoughts. But packing up and coming across the country, I don't know if it's something that I learned as a kid or I've learned more of it as a nurse. There's only one take that you get in life, right? And that's kind of taking a little bit of film into chasing your dreams. There are more people that I've met, that I've taken care of, that have been sad or missed parts of their lives because they just didn't try, versus people that end up dying and saying, I'm happy with everything I did. There are a lot more people that regret not doing certain things. And I approach life from that perspective. I don't know when I'm going to die. I don't know how I'm going to die, but until I do, I'm going to do everything I can to be happy and everything I can to enjoy the journey as best as I can. Yeah, there's risks and there are mistakes and there are super huge wins and super huge successes, but they kind of come and go with one another. Like, you just have to give it that shot. So no regret, no fear. Driving across country, it was enjoying the journey. It was enjoying the process. This is the other thing is, to this day, my parents don't really understand what I do in the film industry. All they care about is that I'm happy. They don't really get. I think I had a really deep heart to heart with my mom, explaining my process and how I do what I do with the last play that I did, so that she could understand what she was seeing me go through. But my parents don't really get what my process is like and what acting is like for me. So my dad had no idea what I was getting myself into and what I was doing, except I was doing what I wanted and I was excited about it and I was happy. And he didn't have to worry. He knew I had a job. I had a job before I even started driving across the country. So he knew that I was going to be okay. And it's what they've always told me and my brothers. If anything ever happens, you always have home. You can always come back. Don't worry about that.
Right.
So, yeah.
That was a good cushion.
Yeah.
So what year was this when you made your travel across the country?
October 11th of 2007. I drove into Hollywood. I remember coming off the 101 and there's a little sign that says, "Welcome to Hollywood." And the first apartment that I was put up, because travel nursing, they put you up in an apartment or they give you housing. They set you up with a job and that whole deal, was on Hollywood Boulevard. So I lived on Hollywood Boulevard for about a year and a half while I was starting off my traveling, a year and a half, 2 years, which isn't as glamorous as it seems, because they're constantly shutting down Hollywood Boulevard for different premieres and different events. And you're always stuck on this 2-lane road. And it was just terrible to get out of. But it was a really great experience. It was a really, really amazing experience.
Now, when you landed in your apartment, I mean, did you know anybody at all? Any soul at all in LA?
Nobody.
Wow.
it was, I'm going to figure it out. And I got here. I started, everybody looks into background work. I started looking into some background work just to start getting on sets and starting to meet people.
Get that first
And
credit.
say it again.
Just to get that first credit, you know, you get a couple of credits underneath their belt.
Yeah, yeah, and just start to understand what the game is really like. I mean, I came out here at 23. It's I'm not going to say it's late, but it's late to start a career in film and TV if you don't have any connections at 23. Things can happen, but it wasn't like I came from a prestigious acting school in Florida, or I had no connections, literally no connections. So it was, well, where do I go for breakdowns, and where do I find what roles I want to play, or where do I audition for this, and kind of figuring that all out. And I ended up on a set playing an orderly because I had medical background. And it was funny because when I first got here, I was working Friday, Saturday, Sundays every single night. And the shoot was Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So I went to set, shot, went into work, worked my 12-hour shift, then left work, went straight over to the set, started shooting at 8 o'clock in the morning, did a 12-hour shoot, went back to work. And so I worked basically 24 hours, 3 days in a row so that I could get on set. And I got to meet someone else, another person that just kind of lands in your life and helped me kind of redirect. And there was a producer, I don't even remember their name, but we were standing filling in for background. And they said, yeah, I wish I would have met you earlier because I can't stand this guy that's playing the lead. If we're on the last day of shooting, but had I met you, maybe you would have been acting. I said, that would have been great. They said, show me your resume, show me what you have. And I showed them what I had, and I didn't have any acting classes or anything in California. I said, you need to take an acting class. You need to just put something on your resume so that we know you're not just passing through. You might have talent, but I need to know that you have some type of training.
Right.
And I jumped in and I said, okay, cool. So I went one of the, in between the nights or in between the shoots, one of the night shifts, I was sitting at work when I had slowed down, and I looked up the different acting teachers and the different acting techniques. And I started reading through all of them. And I went in and I sat in on a Stella Adler class, and I sat in at the Strasberg studio, and I started checking out the different methods of acting, and nothing was clicking. And then I found one that was called the Meisner technique by Sanford Meisner, which focuses on believing the imaginary circumstance that you've been given. And I don't come from an abusive family. I'm not a drug addict. I wasn't abused as a child. I don't have stuff to pull from. So I don't sit there and try to recreate or relive things. I've been lucky enough to have a good life. And imagination is what works for me. So this was right up my alley. And I went in, I sat in for like this kind of session of just explaining what the process was like. And they said, you will not fully understand what you're doing until you're 20 years into this. And I said, I'm in. Cool. Let's give it a shot. And I signed up, and I did classes for about a year and a half. And the first 6 months were 5 days a week, 3-hour days in class with at least 2 hours worth of rehearsal after class, where I'd squeeze in more time. And I was working every weekend. So I'd leave on Mondays. I'd leave work after my third 12-hour night shift and go into class and do class for 3 hours and into rehearsal, and then kind of cycle through. And that was about 6 months, and it was fantastic.
Did you ever look back at that and think of how dangerous it was? I mean, you know, working kind of those hours. I mean, it could have been sort of disastrous.
I found my threshold for migraines, how much I can deal with, and how much I can put up with before a migraine really kicks in with me. I get migraines when I overwork myself. Yeah, I think I found a way. There's a saying in Spanish, which is sarna con gusto no pica, which is basically like best way to put it is a rash that you ask for doesn't itch. It's a welcomed pain or welcomed suffering. It's basically, you'll find a way to get through your passion, whatever it is, as long as it's really your passion. And lucky enough, I was working on a unit that I was very familiar with. The patients really weren't that critical. So it was never an issue of putting them at danger. And then when it came down, the only thing that would suffer would be me or my work in class. And I knew when I had to shut off, my body would tell me to shut off, and it did multiple times. So,
Did you ever fall asleep in class?
oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, not that often, to be completely honest, because I run on this thing called Cuban coffee. Cuban coffee is extremely strong, and that would get me through. It'd only take one day to get back onto a regular schedule. So that Monday, I'd have to push through the exhaustion of having worked 312s, get through the class, do my rehearsal. Sometimes I'd get home, knock out for an hour, get back up, do my rehearsal time, and go to sleep early to just try to get back on a normal schedule. But it only take one day. I was also young and ignorant and didn't know what I was doing. So it's much easier when you don't really have those.
Now, if you saw somebody try to do that, like, guess what I'm doing? You can sit there and say, come over here. Let's talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, it's a bad idea. How old are you? Okay. It's going to take a few years.
I'm 22. Okay, yeah. Well, we want you to reach 23.
Yeah.
But the drive does. That is the drive. I mean, I can't sit here and sit there and play innocent, because I did the same thing and I was older. I will work 3 days just like you were doing, not all 12, not 24 hours a time, but I worked a few 20-hour days, like 3 in a row. And believe me, I was, when you crashed, you crashed. So now you're in LA. Now you're taking your Meisner class. I mean, how did you like taking classes? I mean, it was all new experience for you. So did you pick it up pretty quickly? Did you just embrace it, or was it a little bit of a fight for you? Since you had
once I accepted that I was going to do it, it all changed for me. They were speaking my language. When I got into acting, it all came really natural to me. And I didn't want anybody to get in there and start tinkering with the things that I did and how I did them. But at the same time, I knew that deep down inside, I didn't know if I could reproduce it scene after scene or take after take and hit that same intensity. I didn't really have a tool set. I didn't really understand what I was doing. I just knew I could do it. And as I got into class, I learned early on that if I committed to putting everything in there, even if at the end of the day I crashed and burned, it was going to be worth it. And I'd get more out of the crash and burn than out of, oh, that was fantastic. Thank you so much. You did a great job. And I didn't have teachers that nurtured the good job attitude. They were not, they didn't pull punches. So if you sucked and if you weren't there and you weren't focused on the work that you were doing, they would tell you flat out. They'd stop you in the middle of whatever you were working on and be like, where are you coming from? What are you doing? Why are you not connecting? What's missing? And they'd really hone in on the pieces that were just missing truths at the end of the day, things that just you'd watch and be like, I don't believe what you're doing. And I could be sitting there crying about the fact that my mom has just died. And they'd be like, I don't believe you. And it can be difficult until you start to trust the fact that, okay, there's something, I want to be amazing at this. I want to be the best at this that I can ever be. So if this person's not getting it, what is not being projected or emoted or received by them? What am I not doing? And what it came down to was learning that if I don't believe it, they're not going to believe it. So everything turned into really finding a way to truly believe what was going on in that moment, whatever moment that I was given.
Man, that the Meisner, I guess is it safe to say it's method?
It's like a method. I mean, it is, because everything stems from the method of acting. The method, which was Stanislavski came up with a method, and then they all work together. Strasberg, Adler, Meisner, Uta Hagen, all of these people worked together and formed the group theater, and they all found their own way of doing the same thing. Lee Strasberg stayed the closest to the traditional way of doing things, which was bringing up the emotions and really feeling and going back and sort of regressing into the moments. And I'm speaking out of turn because it's not my technique. So if I'm saying something wrong, my bad. But that's where Strasberg lived in, and then Meisner stems from the same thing. It's ways to find that emotion, not to emote things, but how to live within that moment that you've been handed, whatever that moment might be for that scene or for that movie or for that interaction.
I think it's safe to say, quite honestly, I mean, I think you are probably very much a quick learner because, well, maybe yes, you didn't, maybe your mom didn't die, and maybe you were having trouble bringing that up. But I bet you, sure as hell, if you started thinking about some of your patients that you had to work with and saw their suffering and saw their grief, I think that would be a more than adequate substitution to get where you needed to go.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's part of it, right? You learn that if you need to substitute, you substitute. The funny part about nursing, maybe it's not that funny, but the honest thing about nursing is that I find nursing to be probably as far from truthful connecting as it can be, because I can't cry. My approach is I can't cry with you. It's not going to serve you if I sit there crying next to you while you're going through something. I'm here to be supportive. So there's, if I really do connect, and I've cried with patients before, I've cried with family members before. Maybe it's helpful and conducive to their healing process. It's very difficult for me to shut that off and go somewhere else, whether it's the little kid with a broken arm or something else. So it's not conducive to the rest of the process of nursing. It might be cathartic and it might be very helpful for me as a human being to be able to deal with that later. But I create a bit of a disconnect. It doesn't feel like that. I'll still connect with you as a normal person.
I think you have to have that. I mean, otherwise you're not going to survive very long.
You can't. Yeah, you can't.
Well, and that's really what you covered in the shift too. So yeah, that's that. So now you're in class. Now you're do you remember the first time you got to get up in front of the class and do a monologue or do a scene with a partner, and you just felt like, I got it, and you got it, and you really did get it? Do you remember that feeling? Do you remember the piece you did, or?
No, not the piece. I was, so when I was in class, the way that we did a lot of the work was Meisner. The joke that everybody makes about Meisner is that it's all repetition, which it is. It's all based on the idea of listening and answering, to the fact that the words don't matter. It's what's being said behind the words or underneath the words. The words ride the river of emotion that you're feeling. And a lot of our work was based off of repeating things. So you have a red sweater, and it would be starting with giving an opinion about your red sweater, and you'd hear how I said it. And if you have opinion about that, you'd give it back, or you just hear my opinion and reflect that same opinion back. So a lot of the work for me started to click in repetition and in just the listening and answering. I was better at that than I was with actual scene work. So I'd get scene work and be like, I don't understand the words. I really don't understand why I'd be even saying this. And that was the next hurdle for me to figure out. But if I would sit there and just connect with someone and listen and answer, that came very natural to me. It's always been easy for me to connect with people, especially if they're not connecting. I have this, I guess, giving attitude or giving personality where I'm just like, I'm going to give you everything of me so that you will give it back. At some point, you will have no choice but to just give everything back. And I found that connection to be the process for me. I found myself very comfortable in that world of just listening and answering. Yeah, I remember the first time it really clicked. We were doing what's called an independent activity. It's a specific step in the process where you have to do something difficult, if not almost impossible, that has a time limit. And it's just a way of structuring simple, basic things that go into any scene and any interaction. And someone walks in to interrupt it. And I was working with a really good friend of mine, this guy, Neil Malik Abdullah. He's an actor, but he's in Germany. And he was taking classes, and we met at the Meisner studio where I was studying. And I wanted to connect with him, but I used to do Muay Thai, I used to do kickboxing, and I was doing roundhouses on this big blow up kicking bolster kind of thing that was balancing on a sandbag, and it would bounce. And my goal was I had to do a spinning roundhouse back kick to the point that the actual bolster would swing all the way and touch the floor, and I had to do 10 in a row. So it was something difficult and almost impossible under a certain time frame, but I still needed to connect with my friend. And I remember falling into a zone where I was literally doing both things at the exact same time. I was 100% focused on the activity that I was doing and my partner, and really wanting to connect with both. And that was a huge hurdle for me, learning that I could do and connect and be focused on two things at the same time, which is really important in a lot of scenes and a lot of work that you do. So, long-winded answer, but yeah, I remember.
No. Um, Now, when did you start? When did you start writing? Had writing been had been something you've been doing
No,
back in Florida?
no. I mean, I did a little creative writing when I was in high school, but I was never into writing, and I never imagined I'd write a movie or a scene or anything. And I needed to put together an acting reel, and I wasn't getting enough work, and I wasn't getting enough exposure. So I said, I'm going to write a scene for myself to show people what I can do. And I sat down and I started writing a scene, um, dealing with the most difficult thing that I could possibly imagine, which would be, what if I was the cause of my brother's death? My brothers are the most important thing to me in the work that I do, and I use them a lot. And it devolved into, what if I had to let my brother die? How could I do that? How would I do that process? And I wrote one scene that took place in an emergency room, and my brother had been in a motorcycle accident, and he was begging me to allow him to die. And it was like, how would I even approach this? What is a mercy kill? What is euthanasia? Where does it cross the line? And that's where the line comes from. Where do you cross the line between being alive and actually living a life, or draw the line? And it's like the key question that the shift revolves around. And I wrote a scene, but the scene was 10 pages long. I wrote it on an old writing program called Celltext, which kind of gives you the format for writing screenplays. And I had read enough scripts that I knew kind of what structure I needed to do and how long I wanted it to be. And a buddy of mine read it, and he was like, it's a hospital scene. He goes, for a scene for a reel, you're going to use maybe 30 seconds of it, and 10 pages is 10 minutes. He goes, you're going to waste a huge location and a lot of time on just a scene. He goes, why don't you save that for something else? And I said, like, for what? He goes, I don't know, like a feature. And I said, okay, how many pages are in a feature film? And he said 90 to 120. And I said, oh, I got 10. And I sat down. I told him, I'm going to write a feature based on this idea. And I started searching for books to try to figure out what books to read. At this point, I've got all those on the wall that I've read, a bunch of them that are just writing books and acting books and directing books and stuff like that. But the first book that I grabbed was Save the Cat. And it was a very simple book, a very simple breakdown to understand structure. I had a gist of the idea of what the structure was, and I wrote the shift over the course of 2 nights, 2 12-hour night shifts. I sat in my room against the wall. I had a desk that was in the corner, and I just sat down. I said, well, if I get halfway through the script tonight, then all I got to do is the second half of the script tomorrow. And there was something there. It wasn't perfect, but there was something there, and there was enough to mine the movie that you've seen. But it took a lot of rewrites. That was the first draft was in 2000, and graduated in 2009 from acting class. I think end of 2009, beginning of 2010, I did the first draft, and we started shooting in 2011. Yeah.
How did you sell it? How did that happen? Did you get representation during your acting classes, and
No,
then
no. Uh, I wrote the script, and then my buddy who had told me to write a movie instead of doing a short film or doing anything that kind of resembled wasting time, uh, we started a writers group. There was a group of about 9 of us, and we
yeah,
all got together, and everybody would bring scripts, and we'd give each other notes and ideas, and we'd read them out loud, and we'd get through like giving each other ideas on how to adjust. And there were a few really good writers in that group, and I said, "Well, I got mine. I'm going to send mine in," and everybody read it for the following week. And they were like, "Is this? But what draft is this?" And I said, "Oh, it's like 4 or 5." And they're like, "This is out of all the scripts that we've read, this is the one that's closest to being shot." And I said, "Okay, let's shoot it." And everyone was like, "Wait, no. I mean, it could use a rewrite, and you could adjust." I said, "Listen, I'm not trying to write a script to sell it. I want to make a movie. I want to shoot a movie." And the director, Lee Chipola, was part of that group. And I said, "Lee, would you direct it?" He goes, "Yeah." And my buddy Jeremy was the producer. And I was like, "Would you produce it?" He goes, "Yeah, sure." So I just grabbed the people that were closest to me. A buddy of mine, Andrew, who's now a nurse, was an actor in the movie. He was part of the group. I said, "You want to act?" And he said, "Yeah." And then this other guy, Brad, who's an actor on the Oval right now for Tyler Perry. I was like, "You want to act?" And he said, "Yeah." And I knew what they could all do from their own perspectives, and just kind of pulled a group together and said, "I want to shoot it." I think it was April or May, and I said, "I want to shoot it by July." And they're like, "You're crazy." And I was like, "Sure." But I gave myself a date, and I started working towards that date. It didn't happen in July, and I just kept pushing it, and kind of gathering momentum. I said, "I'll fund it myself." We were going to make it for 50 grand. I was going to get a loan from Chase, and I was going to save up the rest of the money, and we were going to figure it out. And Lee had shot 2 features in the past and had sold them to Lionsgate, so he knew what he was doing. And Jeremy had worked with him as well, working on those projects. So I was like, I got a team that's going to help me get it done. Um, and I was like, I want to shoot it in Miami. So let's figure out how to do that. I got in contact with a hospital in Miami. They said that they'd give us a section of their ICU that we could use and turn it into an emergency room. The script went through a few more iterations and rewrites and kind of tweaking. And we got ready to start shooting in October. And we cast an actress out of here to play Casey, the same girl that plays Casey. I'm sorry, not Casey, Amanda. Her name is Casey Fitzgerald. Amanda. We cast her out of here, flew her to Miami, got the whole thing together. And 3 days into production, the whole thing fell apart. The ICU got overrun by patients, so they had to kick us out, and we had to shut down production. In the process, I got to meet Melanie DiPietro, who's my best friend when it comes down to filmmaking, and I was her man of honor in her wedding. I mean, I think that's the easiest way I can kind of break down how close we are. And she came back with me to LA. She was already headed this way, and she said, "I want to make this movie. You need to get me a hospital, and we'll figure it out." And I ended up locking in with one phone call. I locked down the old county USC hospital. I made a phone call, and it turned out that they filmed there all the time, and they would help me out, and they love doing student films. And I was like, "It's not really a student film, but sure." And
I heard it's funny you mentioned this because when I mentioned Scrubs earlier. When I listened to commentary, I listened to all the commentaries, and Bill Lawrence had mentioned that it was easy. It was actually pretty easy to find a place to shoot in LA because there's so many medical buildings there that have closed.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think we looked into the Scrubs set, because Scrubs was done when we were shooting, and we were going to use their set, but it had just been torn down.
Mm.
And you just need the money. Like, you can get a set. It's a lot of money to get a set, especially a medical set. A lot of money. We didn't have that kind of money. And yeah, Melanie pulled the project together. She's the one that got us Danny Glover.
Yeah, I was going to ask you how that happened. I mean, you really struck gold with that.
Yeah, little sleight of hand. We asked Lee, the director, we said, if you could work with anybody, who would it be? Give us a list. And he gave us a list of names, good names, but they were all TV actors. And we were like, yeah, but anybody, like anybody. And in passing and kind of scoffing, he's like, yeah, sure, Danny Glover. If I could work with anybody, it'd be Danny Glover. It's always been my dream to work with him. And Melanie is the kind of person that if you say, I need a pink giraffe, she'll be like, okay, let me see how to do that. And within 2 weeks, we were talking to Danny Glover's people and trying to figure out how it was going to work and how much he would cost and when was he available. And we were already shooting we were already planning on shooting. We already had the money. And the little trickery that we did was that in order to get in touch with his people, we created a assistant to the Shift Film LLC. So like a production assistant. We didn't have the money for a production assistant. So Melanie wrote the entire email. We made it really pretty and sent it over to the assistant to his agent. And assistants get along with assistants better than nobody gets along with assistant. You know, they're the gatekeeper.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, here's a project that I wrote a beautiful letter saying Danny Glover is the person that we want for this role. He's the ideal candidate for it. This is why. Basically pitched the role to him that he was going to be the mentor in the whole story, and very deep rooted story into truth and love and happiness and what it means to save a life and all that beautiful stuff. And it got through the assistant, it got into the agent read it, and then it became the negotiation side of things. And I'll never forget it. The day we got Danny Glover, they said yes on Friday. Yeah, they said yes on Friday. We were shooting the following Wednesday. So it was down to the wire. We had to have all the money in an escrow account before he flew. They told us yes late on a Friday. Monday was a holiday, so we weren't going to be able to put the money in, and we wouldn't be able to buy a ticket. They wouldn't clear him to fly, all that stuff. So we're driving around town. I'm asking my uncle to forward me some cash so I can just put it in. I'll pay him back. I'll figure it out because we need to put Danny's money into an account, like the whole deal. And we put it into the escrow account, and we got the yes, and he's flying out. And then I was like, oh shit, we have a movie.
He wanted to do the movie. I mean, I think it's safe to say when you get an A-lister,
yeah,
you come out and do a movie like that you're making. He's not doing it for the money. I mean, the money's got to be there. It's got to be probably like most people spend on a craft. You know,
yes.
I mean, he did it because he believed in your script and believed in your story.
Literally, yeah.
That's gonna be one of the most satisfying things about the whole process. I mean, here he is. He got like I said, he got an A-lister. And he's coming out there and he's doing it for peanuts.
Yeah,
and he's rolling in there because you have made a tremendous story. I mean, talk about validation, right?
Yeah, and he said that. We picked him up from the airport, or Melanie picked him up from the airport. We met him because he literally got in on Tuesday and we were shooting Wednesday morning. And I met with him, with Lee, the director, with our wardrobe, costume designer, and with Melanie. We all met in his suite at the IHG. We got him a specific room that he wanted to be in. And we're there, and Lee tells him, he's like, by the way, if any of the lines don't feel natural and you want to adjust, feel free. And he goes, no. I don't want to change a word in the script. It's written very, very well.
Wow.
And he's like, who wrote it? And I'm like, me. He goes, very good job. Very good job. And I was like, thank you. He goes, I don't just do any projects anymore.
No, he doesn't.
Yeah. He goes, your script spoke to me. And I said, okay.
Yeah.
And he goes, I've gone through this process of helping people decide what to do with their lives 3 different times. He goes, his sister, his brother, and his father. And in each one of those situations, he had to make a different decision based on the circumstance. And I was like, then I made the story for you. Like, I am trying to tell your story so that people, when it comes down to the line, down to the wire, and they can't make the decision for themselves, they've already made that decision prior to, because you shouldn't have to be the person making that decision. The decision should be made by the person laying in the bed. At the end of the day, it's my right on how I want to die.
Yes.
Same way it was for my grandmother when she passed away. Same way it's for my dad, for my mom. Like, it's your decision.
Yeah.
You want me to keep you alive and put a feeding
No.
tube and put a tube down your throat and trach out, whatever you want. But
No.
if you don't want me to do any of that,
No. My wife requested that she was very adamant, and we talked about this, and she said no DNR. And yeah.
And that's what it's about.
That's some serious weight, Leo. Fucking mad respect to you, man. Serious weight.
Thank you.
The movie is excellent. It's one of the best things I've watched in forever and a day. I mean, I probably should be championing it a little bit more, and I, because I have. I mean, I've talked about the movie quite a bit.
Thank you.
Probably not as much as I should, but because the subject matter is really touchy for me, because it takes me back. It really does. It really takes me back, and I have so much empathy. I have so much empathy for everybody in the film. It's like it's just a really tough, a tough watch of a beautiful film. It's not easy, and I thought the portrayal was, it was just rough. I mean, it was just a rough, but it was a beautiful movie, and it's full of heartbreak, and I really respected the fact that she didn't play it Hollywood. The patented happy ending. There was consequences, for the react, for what happens. So now while you're doing that, when you started writing that story, in 2007, but you are still working before that. You were doing TV shows, Crisis Point, the Rhapsody. I'm looking at your database page, the Rhapsody, Los Angeles. I mean, you were working.
Yeah. I was picking up jobs here and there, just getting my feet wet, getting to know what the dynamics are on a set, because there's a whole nother language that's spoken on a set, and there's a whole nother vibe to set life, and it's very different. Like the other day I was talking to my mom, and she goes, it's amazing how they shoot so fast. I'm like, they don't shoot that fast. I'm like, what you're watching in a movie might have taken them 6 months to shoot, and you're watching an hour and a half. Like, the process is very different, and it's done in a way that serves the finished product the way that it's supposed to be done. So I wanted to understand that. I've always been really interested in understanding what camera does and what lens they choose for what, and is it a spherical, anamorphic, or different options. So many different things that you can choose to help tell the feel of a story and to get a certain emotion across, not just by the actors on the screen, but how you create the world around them. So I was getting on set and I was working, just getting to know people and starting to build relationships. And when it came down to it, I had a few credits under my belt by the time I finished the movie, by the time the movie came out, because we finished it technically. IMDb says it was released in 2013. It wasn't. 2013 was when we got into a first festival, so they count that as a release. But it came out on Amazon Prime, Apple TV. I think Hulu had it, Vudu had it. It was everywhere. 2015. But it came out in 2015, literally the week or the weekend of the Oscars. So it got swallowed up in all of the PR. I spent money on PR to try to promote the movie. I couldn't get anything. It was all everything was about the Academy Awards. So the movie came out. I mean, it's gotten a bunch of views. I think lately it's been on YouTube, and I think it's got like a 1.2 1.2 or 1.3 million views on YouTube alone, but it's the most it's been watched has been on Amazon, I believe, Amazon Prime. Yeah, and the festivals and getting to speak to people, like I had a random fan, right? I'm gonna say that, reach out through Facebook. This lady by the name of Barbara, just randomly reach out and say thank you for the movie and how much it meant to her. And basically saying, I hope you keep making projects like this. These projects need to be made. And that was literally within the last month, just out of nowhere. And I know it has an impact. I know it is impactful. We had people walk out of the theater and later say, it was too close to home.
Yeah.
I just dealt with someone, my mother just passed away. And like the scene with the retired nurse Rose, in the hospital bed where she has the wounds on her body and we're changing the dressings on her body. That is very difficult for people who have dealt with patients that are in rooms and in beds like that for long periods of time.
Yeah.
I didn't want to pull any punches out. There were scenes that were cut out because they were too realistic, that they said, you can't, no one's going to believe that this is really what happens all in the course of one night. And I said, okay, cool. So we'll cut those out. We'll take those out. We'll take out the aggressive drunk guy that comes in and gets into a fight and hurts one of the nurses. We'll cut out the suicidal patient that digs through the sharps container to try to get things to hurt themselves and eventually does. Like, there were so many other scenes that we just had to pull out because there's only so much you can handle. And we teetered on the edge of it being too much.
I mean, I'm sure you saw all those things, but I'm not sure if did you see them all in one night, or was this just accumulation? And you kept those in a
there's
like
a little jar.
Yeah, like a little like weird things I saw tonight.
Yeah.
Write that. Yeah. Yeah, it's easy to try to. You want to impress. You only got an hour and a half to do so. So the temptation is there to throw the cookie dough on the wall and see how much it sticks. But you pull back on it because for the simple fact that you have an angel of mercy.
Yeah,
that pretty much takes away everything. It's like, doesn't matter what else is going on.
Yeah.
You have an angel of mercy on the floor. That is more than enough story to drive.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad whoever gave you that advice did, because it just made the story that much more powerful. Mm-hmm. Plus, we needed to focus on you, because it was really your story. There's a drunk coming in, but I don't really want to see the drunk. I want to see more about the dynamic that's driving you to go where you're going. And so now after that movie came out, and you're right. I mean, it should be seen a lot more. And you told me that you're trying to work to get the rights back to it, to try to relaunch the film, which I think is a good idea. I think it's a really good idea because guys, think about this. Here we are, 2022, and only in just a mere 7 years, since the movie came out, or even 9 years since it was finished or hit the festivals, things have changed so much as far as Hollywood goes, as far as distributing goes. You didn't have what we have back then, in year 7 to 9 years ago, that you do now. So your chance of getting your film out there are greater now than they were back then.
Yeah, and that's the hope, right? Is that we sold our film right at the time of self-distribution coming out. It came out literally right after we sold, and the option to self-distribute on Amazon and all these other platforms became a possibility. We didn't even know about it. Now I've got to find a way to make it intriguing or to build the buzz around it again so that people watch it at a bigger scale than what we've had in the past. So I'm trying to figure out what the best way to do that is. But it's gotten to the point that it just, I think it has so much value in what it brings to the table and the conversation that it starts. We showed it at a film festival up in, I think it was San Francisco area. And it just started a dialogue that they asked us to come back for a second showing in the afternoon so they could have more of a conversation around end of life and DNR and what it means to claim your rights to how you want to die just as much as how much you want to live and how you want to live your life. That we need to stop being afraid of the fact that our life will come to an end at some point, because the fear of it is what's keeping us from deciding how we want that process to be, which makes not just us suffer, but everyone else around us. And that dialogue is just something that is so overlooked until you're in the moment. Most people do not talk about that until the shit's hitting the fan, and now the son needs to decide how to take care and decide whether you got to pull the plug or not on mom. Like, why let it get down to that versus just having an open conversation? You know,
Have you in your job, has anybody ever approached you and asked you for help?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
3 times. I remember each one.
Yeah, well, you'll always remember that.
Yeah, yeah.
An angel. You want to explain what an angel? I said that term, but I'm going to let you explain it. Could you explain what an angel of mercy is?
I don't really know how to explain it. I think the way that the term has been used is the idea of someone that's willing basically to do the unthinkable, right? To take someone's life to prevent suffering, to allow them to have their last wish, which is, I don't want to hurt anymore, or I don't want to suffer anymore. And being the person who is willing to give the medication to um, allow the ending of suffering, whether it's dying, it's passing away, letting someone actually pass away, and giving them that freedom, which is the way I see it, a freedom from suffering. I think that's the best way I can describe it.
There's a movie I watched a long time ago when I grew up. It was called Promises in the Dark, and it starred Marsha Mason and Kathleen Beller, and it's a story about a doctor who's oncologist who's treating a teenager who develops into an advanced case,
Hmm.
and she made her promise to, she didn't want to suffer, she didn't want to be on the machine, and so the doctor, she tells the little girl, the 17-year-old girl, says okay, and she, her parents can't accept the fact that she's dying.
Mm-hmm.
They want to do whatever they can to keep her going, and that ends up putting her on a machine. And the movie comes, um, and it comes with the doctor coming over there and seeing her on the machine, and she tells the night nurse who's watching it, says, just leave the room, so you don't have to see this, leave.
Yeah.
And so she leaves. She's alarmed because she knows what she's going to do, and she does it. She turns off all the machines.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you. Uh, I can't tell you how much that story stayed with me. And, I never thought in my life that I would be in that situation where I would have to make that decision, like I had to go and say that, don't resuscitate her. We both talked about it, but I had to tell them during hospice that, if it comes down to it, and it, I was they called me and says, she's on, she said she passed away, and I didn't get the chance to say goodbye to her face to face. I was going there that next day, and I thought about that, Leo, and I'm thinking, you talk about regrets, and I thought, do I regret, should I put in that DNR so I could have had a fighting chance to say goodbye to her? If I did that, I could at least got a chance to. And I thought, no, I'm glad I didn't.
Yeah.
It took me years to overcome that, to sit there and not beat myself up over that because it stays with you. Like I didn't get to say goodbye, but part of me is like I'm selfish for that, but at the same time, in the greater good of things, the bigger picture, it was the right thing to do to put DNR because she was in such a bad way.
Yeah.
And so I, it's just it's such a to be able to have a way to give someone their dignity. Like I just didn't want her on a machine. I wouldn't want that for anybody. If the person is dying, it's like it's over. When they come back to you and they say there's no brain activity. I don't even know why people even sit there and think about like, okay, I don't know why they just don't do like see what save her, save somebody else's life. Your son or daughter could save somebody's life. I mean, you're giving them a chance to go out with a good memory, with a memorable, something strong, something solid. How many times have you seen that? Where someone has donated a heart or lungs or whatever, and then down the road they come back and they say, "Thank you so much. Without you, I'm dead."
Mhm.
And so instead of two people dying, now you saved one. And yeah. Um, I just yeah, it's a it's a great movie, powerful movie, and I know you're gonna get it back. Um, and yeah, thanks for letting me vent a little bit on there.
No,
That's
for
not really
sure.
not
For
really
sure.
what you do, not really what you do in the interview, but I thought I'd share that with you.
But
Now,
that,
after the shift is out, now that you
yeah.
work, like I said, you get to work with an A-list actor and Danny Glover. Got to, got to act on it. Now, more importantly, you have to rewrite it. He didn't want you to rewrite it. He
No.
wanted you to, and because we've heard, especially doing these interviews, I've heard some nightmares. The guys just sitting there going like, "Well, we went in there, we had to rewrite, over
Yeah.
the night." I mean, it's just like, wow, that's so hard. I can't imagine how hard that is,
Yeah.
to get as a writer to sit there and have, forced to rewrite your script or something like that, or someone will take the improv, take the improv, oh yeah, if you want to do a couple of improvs, and then what they want to do the whole damn thing
The whole
improv.
thing. Yeah.
Well, excuse me, it's not, well, if that was the case, I wouldn't have wrote the damn script. We could have just came over here and did this.
Yeah.
Um,
Go
I'm a
over there
little
and
bit,
say some words.
yeah, I'm a little. I don't mind improv. I don't mind hearing about it, but at the same time, like there's some actors that's all they do. You got Ryan Reynolds, or you got Vince Vaughn is probably the most famous that I can think of. I don't
Mm.
think that guy's ever read a script and gone by it. I mean, he seems like to just pull everything out of his ass. Um, but as a writer, as a screenwriter, that's got to be the most frustrating thing. So now you got that. Now you got that out there. What was your next project that you did after the shift?
After the shift, chronologically, I don't remember, but I know that we sold it. And then I used the fact that the project came out. I got an agent, and I got with an agency. So when I got my first real agent, I think I had just finished doing, I think Louis C.K. I did an episode for Louis C.K. On his show Louis, right around the time that the shift came out, and I got with an agent, and within the year, I told him, I'm like, I want to book with you, get me in the room. I really want to make this happen. And I had done some work on really honing in what kind of work I was going to be called in for and to be quickest and easiest to book. And I have a very strong facial structure that says bad guy. So I leaned into bad guy as hard as I could, grew this out a little bit thicker, shaved the sides of my head, had a bit of a mohawk thing going on. And I started locking in roles back to back. I locked in 3 TV shows. I did Scorpion on CBS. I did NCIS LA, and I did an episode for a show called I Love Dick on Amazon with Kevin Bacon. And those all happened within the course of 1 month. I just started booking back to back. And then soon after that, I think within the year, I booked The Last Ship on TNT.
But we got to talk about one movie though. You know, it's probably a little brief one, but we still got to talk about it because Pterodactyl.
Oh,
Because we're all creature feature fans here. We all love that stuff. So tell us about Pterodactyl.
so I am not in Pterodactyl.
You're not.
I am and I'm not. So I'm in Pterodactyl. So I knew Don Bitters. Don Bitters is one of the directors and one of the writers on it. And Don and I became friends through mutual friends out here in LA. And he goes, "Hey, I need somebody to come in and do the newscaster voice for the trailer." And I said, "Sure, I'll do it." So I came in and I did that. And then he goes, "Actually, I need to put you," he's amazing with VFX. He goes, "I need to put you in the movie to come up on one of the screens." And I'm like, "All right, cool, sure, whatever, not a problem." So I came into his living room. He had a green screen up. We put up a desk, and I'm the newscaster in the background, I think in one of the bar scenes. The movie's a trip. It's so much fun. It's a buddy comedy where pterodactyls crash land in Los Angeles, like through meteorites or meteors, and they start terrorizing the city. And these two guys basically save the city. It's a crazy action comedy.
Yeah, it's sci-fi. It's sci-fi. Yeah. Really fun effects. Yeah, we love those movies.
Have you watched it?
Huh?
Have you watched it?
I'm gonna find it. I'm gonna buy a copy of it.
Yeah, it's hilarious. It's hilarious.
Oh man, no. I mean, in my very first review that I ever did for a film, I reviewed a movie called Jurassic City.
Okay.
And it was exactly like that. It was directed by Sean Kane. I love Sean. Hey, Sean. And I went out and bought it, and I came back and I reviewed it. It's so much fun. Those kind of movies are just so much fun. You know what you're getting. You know.
Yeah. You get to disconnect and just enjoy it.
I had Vernon Wells in it. I had Ray Wise, Monique Parent. Count me in. Take my money. So I saw that, and then you did. Then you said you started doing the villain stuff, and you got to go on the. Now, did you play the same character on Scorpion and NCIS?
No. Totally different characters. NCIS, I was a psych patient in one of the psych wards, where they're going in to look for a CIA agent that's gone into hiding in this psych facility. And I'm one of like the bad guys that like picks on people, but then I end up becoming a good guy towards the end of the episode. It was a lot of fun.
Nice.
And then Scorpion, I was just an all out bad guy walking around with a shotgun and a handgun, trying to kill people, trying to hunt down this gun runner that we worked with, but he had basically stolen our money and stolen our guns, and we were coming after him. Those were a lot of fun, but it was an amazing experience being on set with the cast and seeing how they work and how fast NCIS LA has been going on for so many years, and the speed at which they move. They shoot on dollies. They put their cameras, and they're shooting with two cameras almost the whole time, and they're on these dollies, and they're literally rolling around on the floor, setting up the next shot and moving the camera around and putting it at the height that they want to, a 2-shot, a medium shot. And it's such a well-oiled machine that if you're not ready to go, and I remember it was a really big confidence boost because I had done my audition, and I went out on a limb and I did what I wanted to do with the audition, and they were laughing. So the way that the auditions work is you start in one room when you do your first audition for a show, at least the way it worked with this show. And it's two people. It's the casting director and their casting assistant or associate. They call you back if they like you. And it went straight to producers and directors. So I walk into a room, and it's a room of about 15 people just sitting there. They're not saying anything. They all have pads, and they're just looking at you, judgmental eyes. And that's okay. That's what they're there to do. And you're standing there doing this scene, reading with someone who's across the room from you, and it's being recorded. And I remember doing the scenes, and the writer, Frank Military, actually is the guy's name. Awesome. He wrote so well. Frank Military wrote the episode. He's also directed a bunch of them. And I saw him laughing trying to hold back the laughter while I was doing what I was doing. And I was like, okay, I got him. And I started seeing other people kind of falling into it. And I was like, I think I got this. Before, again, another one of those moments before I got back to my car, they had said that they had pinned me and they were going to confirm with this, with the network to make sure that I could do the role, that I was approved and that whole deal. And I remember showing up to set. They're like, hey, they want to invite you to do the table read. And I got there to Paramount Studios for the table read. And I remember standing in line. They're like, yeah, get lunch first. And I had never met him before. LL Cool J standing in front of me, Chris O'Donnell standing behind me, and Frank Military, the writer, also producer, walks up to me and just taps me on the shoulder. And I don't know who this guy is. And he goes, my name's Frank. I'm the writer. He goes, keep doing what you're doing. You're amazing. I loved what you did. Just keep bringing that. And I was like, thank you. And I'm standing there like, well, shit, he didn't talk to either one of these two guys. He's talking to me. Wow. I get my food, I sit down, and I start playing around in the table read. And it was just very welcoming, very exciting.
Did you know who LL Cool J was, or Chris? No. Huh?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
But I'm standing there all like quiet, like I'm between Robin right here behind me, who I grew up watching in Batman, and I got LL Cool J standing in front of me, like I listened to his music.
Right.
It's just a surreal moment to be in that environment, and then to play opposite Chris. There were certain moments where he didn't know what I was going to do. They don't see the auditions, and there was a specific moment in that episode where it's me and a buddy, and we're like the two bad guys, but we're like comedic relief. And we walk into his room and you think there's going to be a fight because Chris has already punched my lights out in an earlier scene. And we walk into the room and you think that we're going to go at it. And I tell the guy, and I'm like, do it like we practiced. And as the guy starts to apologize and say he really didn't mean to threaten him and blah, 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 I've memorized all his lines, and I'm like a cheer mom or like a dance mom, and I'm mouthing it, moving like how I expect him to do it. And I saw Chris look at me, and he started trying to hold back laughter while we're doing the scene. And after they yelled cut, you heard the entire crew, the director, the DP, everybody who was in an opposite room start laughing. Chris starts cracking up, and I'm like, okay, cool. So I guess that worked. And he was like, I had no idea you were going to do that. And it was just a really fun environment, and being able to come in there and give them something they hadn't experienced, I guess, in a long time.
Yeah, because they've been on the air. I think this is their 13th season they're shooting. So.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it, they just come in and because their show is it's pretty basic, if you really think about it.
Yeah.
Even though it's the most action of all the NCI shows, but there's still a formula,
Yes.
So I mean, it's nice for them to actually see something different and something fresh.
Yeah.
So good for you. Good for you. Now, now you mentioned The Last Ship. Now, I've actually I'm one of those guys that when I see a show, well, before that, there is one other product I want to talk to you about. You did a movie that I absolutely loved. I loved it. I bought it. I loved the first one. They made 3 of them, but I got the first one. I loved it. Cross Wars.
Oh
yeah. My God, I'm a fan. I love that first one. The first one was the shit.
Yeah. Cross Wars was another one of those group of friends, people that you just meet over time. Got a phone call and they said, hey, they're shooting Cross Wars Part 2. And I said, I don't know what Cross Wars Part 1 is. And they're like, check it out. It's kind of campy, but it's fun. And I'm like, cool, no problem. I checked that out. I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. When are we shooting? And it was 2 days, I think, of shooting in downtown LA. And I remember I think it was the second or the third time that I worked with Danny Trejo. And I remember I have a resting bitch face, but it's worse. I have like a resting fuck you face. So like when I'm just really relaxed, my face gets pretty aggressive. And I was a bad guy. So I'm sitting there in a bar scene and Danny walks in and he's like giving everybody orders and he's like the head honcho bad guy. And I'm just sitting there like staring at him. And he looks at me, and that guy's years in prison came through, and he gave me a look, and I felt the little kid in me go, no. Like it hit me. And I've never felt that. I mean, and I've dealt with psychiatric patients, I've dealt with aggressive patients. I have never felt that in my life. That guy had this ability to just hit you with this fear, like at the core. And it was in the middle of a scene. And it was so much fun. It was such a fun movie to shoot. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw the second one too. I have not seen the third one yet. I know they made a third one.
Yeah, I
Um,
haven't seen the third one.
I saw the first two. Um, Sony. I mean, it seems like they do one thing that just they get a franchise going. Like the first Cross was great, and the second one they took a little money from it. You know, they
Yeah.
lowered the budget a little bit.
Yeah.
And I know the third one. I saw the previews of it. It looked like they took a lot of money out of the third one.
Yeah.
But the second one still was pretty decent. I was bummed out because Jake Busey didn't come back, and we're like, "Where's Jake? I mean, Jake's got to be here, you know,
Yeah.
because everybody needs a friend like Ace, you know." And and you got a chance to work with Vinny Jones too, right?
Yeah. It was a lot of fun. A lot of fun to work on.
Yeah. You've gotten some fun stuff. I was just sitting there going like, "Wow, he's in Crosswords. I'm so stoked about that." That's a fun series too, to everybody who doesn't know that. So now the last one I'll talk to you about here, because I'm excited because I just completed it. But you recurred on The Last Ship. The Last Ship is a really good film. I mean, a really good TV series. I saw the first 3 episodes of it, but that's when I had TV. But I just watch films off of DVDs and Blu-rays now, and so I just completed the Last Ship. Just completed the series. Now you were on the last season, or the fourth and fifth season, or just the fifth season?
Just the fifth season, the last season of The Last Ship. Yeah, I had 3 episodes on that. I think it was not the last 3 episodes, but the 3 episodes prior to the last one. That was an awesome experience also. I had gone in for that casting office 2 times before. I remember going in, I remember grabbing those sides, like the audition sides that I was going to read, and being like, oh, I got this. All it said was, his looks could kill. That was it. That was the breakdown. And it was a Colombian hitman. I was like, okay, I can do this. So I worked on a Colombian accent. I know enough Colombians to really hone that in. And then I went in for the audition. I remember doing the audition, and I think Gary Zuckerbrod is the casting director. And he sat there and he just looked at me and he was like, oh. And he looked over his shoulder and he looked at the casting associate who was running the camera. And he goes, did that read? And she's like, yeah. He goes, I don't need anything else. That was fantastic. And he was literally stuttering. He was like, that was very intimidating. And I didn't do anything but just talk straight at him. I used my Danny Trejo moment.
Right.
I just gave it to him. And again, I think that was also on Paramount. I think it was on Paramount Lot. And before I got to my car, I had already booked it. They had already called my agent and told my agent that they were going to push me through the network to get approval. Before I got to my house, I had booked the role, and I knew that I was going to be on that show for a month and a half.
Now, does that happen with feature films too, Leo, where you get cast and then they say, well, we got to go through brass first? I mean, isn't that what a casting director is for? Like they trust them to cast the right person for the right role. Well, I mean, why do they feel they have to go through network?
When it depends on the feature, it depends on production. It depends on who has the final say in the entire thing. So, with the bigger TV shows, there's so many layers of people above the casting director that the casting director is there to sift through the different options, we'll say, and pick the cream of the crop and send that up the food chain, because your director is going to have a say in who they want to direct. Your executive producer is going to have a say. And that should be it. But network is the executive. And sometimes they go through clearance, right? They have to make sure, like, so when I booked Scorpion, they had pinned me for Criminal Minds, but I had NCISLA, I had Scorpion and Criminal Minds. I wouldn't have gotten all three of them. I would have either gotten Scorpion or Criminal Minds. They wouldn't have given me all of them because you don't want to watch episode of NCISLA, then Criminal Minds, and then Scorpion and see Leo. It doesn't. The network doesn't want you to see that.
Sure, I get that.
So they have to clear it just for legality purposes, so that they don't offer you something and then have to pull it back because they're not allowed to do that with the union.
Right.
So there's history as to why they do it that way. With some features, if they're indies, your producer and your director, who are normally in the room with the casting director, have the final say, and it's done right there. It also depends on what it is that you're casting. Like when we did Home Invasion, we knew the names of the people that we were going to have in the name slots, and we knew we could fill in the rest with whatever worked in order to round out the rest of the cast. So it all depends on the size of your production and who's giving you the money. A lot of times the person giving you the money wants final say in who gets to play in the roles, because that dictates the money coming back in.
Yeah, I think that I get that, but it's sort of like, wow, wow. I mean, you gotta show trust in your casting director, right? I mean,
Yeah.
they have a resume too. Go back to the movies and the series they've cast and see how well they've done, and they've done really well. Otherwise, they still wouldn't be casting. So it's sort of like a give and take.
They've also seen a lot more people than you have, right? Because at the end of the day, that casting director is seeing 15 to 30 people per role estimates, right? And as a producer or as a director, you're seeing the top 5 out of each role that they give you, maybe the top 10 if they're really fantastic. So they've seen at least 3 to 6 times more people than you have. So they have a much better grasp of the level of talent that's out there. Now, you do have to find a casting director that fits the mold of what you're trying to create, right, at the end of the day. But that's on you. That's on you as a producer or as a director to find the right person that can build out that vision with you, for you.
Well, that's a really good segue for our last topic, because let's talk a little bit about Home Invasion, because you were a producer on that.
Yeah.
How did you get involved with that project? And I'm just going to ask this for all the fellas, but is Morena Baccarin that beautiful in person as she is on screen?
I would honestly say, with all respect to her husband, who I met, and he's a fantastic guy, I think she's more beautiful in person, honestly, than she even is on screen. I really do think so. Home Invasion came to us, and I say us because it was a Melanie and Leo production kind of situation. We had some friends that we met while making The Shift, and this guy JR came to us with a script, and he goes, "It's a feature. I'd love for you to act in it and be the bad guy, and I'd love for you to produce it." And that was me and Melanie. And I'm like, "Cool, we'll check it out." We read it. It was really fun. And then we did a table read. We said, we need to just hear this whole thing out. So we put together a table read, and we heard it out loud with a bunch of other actors playing the different parts. And Melanie was like, I got to make this. I got to find a way to make it. And we optioned the script from him. It was still a feature film. And he was like, I don't want to rewrite it. I wrote the first draft, but I don't think I have the talent to rewrite everything. So let it be. So
congratulations to him, right, for being honest.
Yes. And by all means, hat off to him, because it would have probably taken us longer. Granted, there are parts that change. And then as a writer, when you see what's changed, sometimes it hurts, and that's not my story. And you have to deal with that. But if you can accept that up front and know that my concept is being turned into other things, you're going to get to see your project on screen. I mean, that if you're not willing to do the work that it's going to take to get it there, be proud of the fact that your idea has gotten you there, or has gotten it there. So we grabbed this feature. We grabbed a writer friend of ours that we knew, Corey Scott, who's a fantastic writer. The guy is amazing. And then we grabbed Don from Pterodactyl, who we knew, and said, "Don, can you help us direct this? We were going to make it into a feature. And Corey, can you rewrite it, and let's make it work?" And Don help us adjust the visual effects side of it, because we need to be able to afford it, because creating a fuzzy animal versus a leathery animal is more expensive. It's just stuff that you start to learn, because the hair has to move in order for it to be right. It costs more. It's just a bunch of stuff. Corey rewrote it. We gave notes. He rewrote it. Don came in. Don helped rewrite it. Then we sat down, and one night, me, Melanie, and Don, we were here at my house, and we're just rewriting, trying to finish it off, because we had to get a draft off to the network that was going to give us the money. And we were drunk on coffee and no sleep.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And we finished the draft, sent it off. It got approved. And then the network said, this is fantastic, but we can't do features anymore. I'm like, okay. They're like, we can only do TV shows. Can you make it into a TV show? And we're like, sure.
Now, is this an American network?
No, so this is a Swedish network. So quick backstory. Melanie was working as a script supervisor on set for a show called Swedish Dicks. A lot of fun to watch. I think last time I saw it, it was on Pop TV with Peter. Oh my God. Let me get kicked in the face for not knowing his last name. Peter. I forgot his name. Peter and Johan Glans. Johan Glans is like the biggest comedian in all of the Netherlands. Melanie went from being the script supervisor to ending up being a producer on the second season, and then being the head of development and production for Brain Academy, which was a company that had a branch in Sweden and had a branch in the US. She said, I think Johan would be great to play Al, the father, in the movie. I think I can get him on board. And by getting him on board, the Swedish company said, we'll fund the project as long as you get us a name actress. We'll give you a list of names, or come up with a list of names and see who you can kind of narrow it down to. And Morena was at the top of our list. And once we got Morena on board and we had Johan on board, we had funding for the project. But now it had to be a TV show instead of a movie. So we had to go in, tear the whole movie apart, open it up. We went from an 1.5-hour movie to 6 30-minute episodes, and rewrote that in the course of a month. Expanded the whole thing, added characters, rewrote a bunch of storylines to make it all work. And network approved the scripts, network approved casting. I got involved as a producer, and as I saw it growing, I told Melanie, I was like, listen, I know that I am not credit-wise at the caliber that the network is probably going to approve. All I want is the opportunity to audition. I don't want it to be given to me, and I don't want to take it as a producer. I don't want them to think that I'm just getting this job and giving it to myself. And she was like, cool. So I went through the whole auditioning process. And it was nerve-wracking, but it was the most amazing thing to be able to work with the other actors as they were coming in and really flesh out who the final cast was going to be. And I remember telling Melanie, I was like, I don't want to be the final decision maker, because I don't want it to be me saying that it's me. I want it to be a decision made by you guys, the other producers. And it came down to it. She came to my house and she goes, I need to watch it with you, because I want to watch the chemistry reads between all the actors, because everyone that was sitting in the room, no one can decide on who the final two are supposed to be. And when we sat down to watch all of the characters and all the actors playing everything back, and the chemistry between everybody, hands down, I sat back and I said, listen, I'm not saying this because it's me, but if I was a producer and I saw myself and Ross Phillips, who plays Tom, which is the other main character in the story, I'm like, those two have the best relationship. That's the best friendship I can see. And that's what this story's about. It's about two friends that break into a house to pay off a debt. And at the end, it turns out to be a house run by aliens who are here to take over the planet. And it's a crazy, goofy comedy, and it's so good, but it all stems on, he owes me because I took a fall for him for a crime that we committed when we were younger. He's gone off to become a lawyer, and I went to prison for 7 years. So you owe me. And
Sure.
But we still care about each other. You're still my best friend, and I'm still your best friend. And how does that evolve throughout the course of the story? And it all takes place over the course of one night when the world is basically about to explode and become pieces. And Morena plays the all-powerful security system that runs the AI security system that runs the house, which is actually a spaceship. And she makes our lives very, 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 very difficult as we try to navigate everything. I mean, if you like Cross Wars, if you like stuff like that,
Yes, we do. I do.
it's amazing. It's so much fun. It's so much fun. And Don directed it. Don did a fantastic job directing it. He comes from that world of saying, how do I make this goofy stuff seem real? He loves physical comedy. We got to play with physical comedy. The writing was fantastic. So there was a lot of witty banter back and forth, and we created it. Like
do you have to negotiate now whenever you do a contract for a show like that? Do you have to, before it'd be just like, okay, we're going to do this show, we're going to put it out, and then, 6 months, 7 months later, we're going to put it home, we're going to release it for home use. Do you have to negotiate home release now? Because, like some places like Disney Plus or Netflix, they don't want the movies or the TV show to become a home release option. They want to keep it strictly on streaming services, exclusively. Do you have to negotiate that when you have to do a show now?
It's if you can negotiate that. Like, do you have the weight behind you to even make that a negotiating point? Because a lot of that comes from the distributor's standpoint. They get to choose whether they do a home release, whether they do just a plain theatrical release. It's all because they're the ones providing the money. They're the ones that get to decide. You don't really have that negotiating power. You have hope and you can pray, but when it comes down to it, they decide whether it, like this show in particular, it was released all over Europe, but it hasn't come to the States. Viaplay, the main company that owns it, can choose what they want to do with the movie, with the show.
Yeah, yeah, that's really weird you mentioned that, because I just had an experience with that. There was a movie out I wanted to buy called Christie, and it's an American-made movie. It was distributed by the Weinsteins. Came out in 2014. Shot here, American cast, only released in Europe. Never got released here at all on any platform. The damn
why.
I've never seen that.
Huh.
I've never seen that. But nope, you can't find it. It hasn't been released here.
I don't know why they would do that. That doesn't make sense to me. But
yeah, because I said I'm going to get that. I want to get this movie because I read about it, and I'm like, I want to get it. So I'm going to go ahead because I'm a fan of Haley Bennett's. So I wanted to get it. So so I went on eBay and I started looking, and they had German copies all day long.
Wow.
And they looked. I actually bought it because it didn't list it as being German. I just bought it. No, it didn't. It just said, had Christie. I was like so excited. I just bought it sight unseen, and then I got it, and it said, it's all German. I'm like, oh wait a minute, this is region 2. And I wrote back. I said, you give me the wrong movie. I want the English copy. And says, no, this is the only one we have. It says, well, you didn't tell me that. So can I get a refund? And they said, no, you can just go ahead and keep it. So I still got it. If I get a non-region player, I guess I'd be happy. Okay. Now I know I gotta get you out of here because you gotta get to sleep.
Yeah, I got tomorrow.
Yeah. Really quick chat. Does anybody have any questions for our guest, Leo Oliva? Did I say that right?
Oliva. If you really want to play with it, give the I a little harder E.
Oliva. Anybody have any questions? I'm sure Hobbs is going to have some questions for me. Let's see. Question for the guest. What's his dream role?
What's my dream role? That's changed recently. I want to get on stage. I want to get on stage more than I want to do TV and film. I got to do a really amazing play with an amazing Pulitzer Prize winning playwright, Nilo Cruz. in Miami over the course of last year, November, and it's really gotten me into looking into theater more. I'm looking into off of his suggestion, I'm looking into the public theater and New York and deciding whether I'm even going to stay in LA and maybe head to New York and start working some actual theater, maybe some Shakespeare. I want to try something that's going to challenge me a little bit more. So we'll see. I don't have a specific role, but I think changing what I play in is the next jump.
I hope that happens, because I still think Broadway still pretty much shut down or pretty much semi shut down.
Yeah.
So, are you doing pilot season right now?
Yeah, sort of. I mean, I've already had a few auditions. I am being seen for some major roles in some TV shows that I'm not allowed to talk about, but pilot season is also kind of not 100% there anymore because every streamer is constantly coming out with projects. Pilot season only really lives for the network TV shows that have that structured January release, mid-season release, end of the year release. So there's one Netflix show and one Amazon Prime show right now that I'm being looked at for. But I'm starting to fall more into streaming and less into network TV. There's also an aspect of the fact that I'm Hispanic, but I don't look ethnic Hispanic. And the streamers tend to be more open to that idea than the network TV. Network TV is still very, for lack of a better way of putting it, kind of cookie cutter in the way that they look at what a Latino looks like or what a Hispanic looks like.
Typecasting.
Yeah. But the streamers are more open to it. So.
What superhero would you like to play if you could?
Oof.
Say Stingray. Say Stingray.
Stingray? Why Stingray?
All right. Hell yeah. That's what I'm talking about. Stingray. He's a Marvel Comics character. He's my second favorite character. But yeah, you play a good Walter Newell. He's an oceanographer. Yeah. He's pretty badass.
My favorite growing up was Nightcrawler when I was a kid.
Okay.
Loved Nightcrawler, and then as I got older, I really fell into the idea of Gambit. I really enjoyed.
Gambit's I don't know why. You know what? You have to just hope to hell that Disney doesn't, Disney Marvel, when they bring those characters in, and they will. You got to sort of hope that they bring them in right. I'm holding my breath that they bring Stingray in for Armor Wars. They already brought Moon Knight in the play. Moon Knight's my second favorite character, and then the other third character won't be able to come on because he's dead, and that would be Jack of Hearts. All right, any more questions? If you had to share a leading man scene with an actress, what actress would you pick?
I think right now, I mean, growing up, my crush was Julia Roberts. I think my current Julia Roberts would be Jessica Chastain. I think she's phenomenal. I think she's a brilliant actress.
Interesting. Yeah. She's interesting. She can play so many different roles.
Yeah.
Nice. I mean, she was amazing in The Help.
Oh my God. In The Help. And then I don't know if you saw Molly's Game. Molly's Game is fantastic, where she runs like an underground poker tournament.
I picked up The Eyes of Betty Tammy Faye, so I haven't watched that yet, but I do got Molly's Game. I just haven't watched it yet. Yeah, she's interesting.
Yeah, she's got something about her that's not. It's not fully revealing, but it's very interesting to watch her work.
She's like a harder edged Julianne Moore to me.
Yes.
I mean, she could play. They're both very elegant, but I mean, if you want someone to get their hands dirty, it would be Jessica Chastain. Yeah. Julianne Moore wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I'm not saying that you wouldn't, Julianne. I'm just saying, just okay.
Are you testing her? Are you trying her? Are you getting her?
You know what? Who knows? I mean, you know what? I'll interview anybody. Um, anybody that's interesting to come on here and give me the time of day like you have. I'll definitely glad to talk to them. But listen, I do want to let you go because, like I said, I'm very conscious that you have to work 12 hours tomorrow, and I know he wants to get some rest and spend a little bit of time, decompressing after the day. So I want to say thank you. I cannot tell you how much of an honor it is to do this
Thank
for
you.
me.
Thank
This is like a grail guest, honestly. I
it.
never thought, when never thought that I would ever get to talk to someone on your level, and I'm totally tickled by it. And you really helped me out. I mean, this has been awesome.
It's been a
Um,
pleasure for me as well,
I
honestly, Pat.
wanna I wanna talk again. I
Yeah.
definitely want to talk again. We'll touch base toward the end of the year and see where you're at.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Let's do that.
hopefully by that time, one of those two things will come through for you, and we'll talk about that.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
I think I have one last question. I think
Yeah.
it's also our last question out there. Oh, good show. Thank you so much. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is up for
Thank you.
me. Next Tuesday, we do have actor Ikeem Bozeman will be here on Tuesday at 8 o'clock. Wednesday, we have Karen from Ocean City, Ocean Chick Films. Uh, she's one of our local. She's one of our community, our film community. And then next Thursday, I got to look at this because next Thursday we have our first husband and wife team here on 8 Questions With. We'll be talking to Eric Lump and his wife Judy Lay, and they'll be here at 8 o'clock as well. Leo, again, thank you so much. And yep, everybody else, I'll be back on in about an hour or so. And for Saturday night, I hope to see some of you there. All right. Stay right where you're at, Leo.
Thank you.
Peace. Oh, this is going to freeze up on me. I knew it was.